Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm McKenna. I'm the owner of Murder by the Book in Houston, Texas. And I'm very excited tonight to be hosting a virtual event again. It's been a little while. I've had a couple weeks without doing these. So I am happy to be back on here on Facebook and YouTube. And we're going to be joined this evening by Rob Hart and Delilah Dawson. It's going to be a great conversation about Rob's new book, The Paradox Hotel. So if you have any questions along the way, don't be shy. There's no such thing as a dumb question. And if it is a dumb question, I just won't put it on the screen. So we will get to those later on. For now, let me go ahead and bring on the stars of the show. So we're going to get started with Rob Hart. Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for being here. Again, I'm rusty at this. It's been a couple weeks off, and I forgot to mention that for more information about both authors and their books, or to order books and get signed book plates from us with the order, there is a link in the comments on Facebook and on YouTube. So I just dropped that link. It's there for you. And again, for those of you watching, if you have any questions, don't be shy. Okay, I'm going to do your official bio, and we're going to get Delilah on here as well. So Rob Hart is the author of The Warehouse and the Ash McKenna crime series, and he co-wrote Scott Free with James Patterson. He's worked as a book publisher, reporter, political communications director, and a commissioner for the city of New York. He lives on Staten Island. As I mentioned, his new book is Paradox Hotel, and that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I really wish I could have been down there because I love Murder by the Book. That's always one of my favorite stores to go to.
I know we wish the same. So hopefully for the next book.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We also have Delilah joining us. Hi. How are you?
Hi. I'm great. How are y'all?
We're good. I also same thing. We wish you were in store, but thank you so much for being here. I always joke that my favorite person when we do these virtual events is our guest moderator because they take the job off of my shoulders. So thanks for being here. We do really appreciate it. Let me go ahead and do your bio as well, and then I'll go away and leave you guys to talk. So Delilah S. Dawson is the author of the New York Times bestseller Star Wars Phasma, as well as Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Black Spire, Mine, the hit series, the Blood series, the creator-owned comics Ladycastle, Sparrowhawk, and Starpick, and the Shadow series written as Lila Bowen. With Kevin Hearne, she co-writes the Tales of Pell. She lives in Georgia with her family. And as I've already mentioned, your new book is The Violence, your latest book. So we definitely want to hear a little bit about that later too. But for now, I'm going to leave you alone, let you guys talk about the Paradox Hotel. And I will be here. If anything comes up, just call on me. Otherwise, I'll see you in about 35 minutes.
Wish us luck.
Cool.
I mean, this way we can't blow up the bookstore at least.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Delilah.
Hey, Rob. It's good to see you. If only we could be at a hotel sparring and punching each other like the last time we hung out.
I know, right? I was thinking about that today. Just being in person, because I was walking around, I was running some errands, and I'm like, I would give anything to be in the Javits Center right now, just hanging out with you and the other authors from around the Del Rey team. Yep. Yeah, and it's funny because New Yorkers as a whole have a hard time agreeing on things, but the one thing all New Yorkers agree on is that the Javits is the worst place on earth. And so, yeah, I still wish I was there right now because this whole virtual thing is just not super fun.
It doesn't have quite the warmth that we once had.
Yeah.
But I did see you all around New York today, signing books everywhere.
Yeah, I've been kind of just trying to sign stock and just kind of do what I can. It was weird because when we were setting, I mean, things are a little bit safer now, but when we were setting everything up, it was back in December when everything was just a complete nightmare. So it was let's just focus on virtual for now and see how it goes.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited because this is my first event for this book, and I'm really excited that I get to do it with you. Because besides being a pal and we've punched each other, so obviously we've got a real strong bond. I just really loved the violence.
Yay! Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, I'm hearing a beeping. Is that? I was is there something in my room beeping? But I think it might just be pandemic induced.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Probably. Yes. Okay. So, Paradox Hotel. Give the good people the pitch.
Yeah, so it's basically it's a story that's set in a hotel for time travelers, called the Paradox Hotel, and it's about the house detective who is sort of kind of losing her mind a little bit, and she's in this situation where time travel technology is about to be privatized and sold off to the highest bidder, and it's obviously a bad thing. Then finds a body that only she can see. So she's got this sort of like auction going on. She's trying to solve a crime that she's not even sure if it's happened or if it even is a crime. And there are robots and dinosaurs and all these fun travel shenanigans, but it's also about sort of like grief and loss and coping and facing yourself. So it was a really fun and challenging book to write, but I'm kind of shocked that it came together.
But it did, because I've read it and it's amazing. So
Well,
what was
thank you.
the inspiration behind it? Like, I always love to hear about like where that little idea seed came from.
Oh, well, so you're gonna love where it came from. It came from Sleep No More.
Yes! Oh god, it's
Yeah.
like opening next month, and like me and Kevin and Chuck are coming up for tour, and I'm like, maybe I could sneak out and go.
Oh, if you do, I will go with you.
Let's do it! Oh my god, let's do it!
Yeah, yeah. So for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what Sleep No More is, it's this interactive theater experience in New York City, and it's amazing. It's so much. It's like super creepy. It starts in a hotel, and then the space changes in all these other spaces, and you wear a mask and you follow all these actors like they're acting out like a version of Macbeth, and then you can go through stuff and search things, and you can follow different like it's really really wild. And I've done it like 4 or 5 times, and obviously Delilah's a fan too. And, there was one of the times I was doing it, I was walking around and I was thinking like, wouldn't it be cool if there was a hotel where you can go into a room and it was like 5 minutes from now or like 10 minutes ago, and home and to go back and time travel hotel. And it sat there for like months. It's like all I had. But the idea just kept on turning over in my head until and all these little pieces started to come together until finally it was like, oh yeah, no, this is a book now. I got to do this one. And because I've always wanted to do a time travel book because it's such a fun lunatic challenge. I mean, it's one of those things. Like it's sort of like White Castle. It's like it sounds like a great idea, and then you go eat it. Or like what I do. I kind of had that experience with writing time travel. I'm like, this is going to be so much fun, and then I started writing it, and I'm like, why did I do this?
It seems like you
Um,
have to do like a lot of like planning and mapping and like it seems very labor intensive to plan it.
it's nuts. It's nuts. I actually the thing that I found that really really helped was creating limits for myself, like as many limits as I could. Like in this reality, you can only go backwards, you can't go forwards. You never actually see anyone get into a machine and go somewhere. Like no one gets in a machine and like goes to the I don't know, Library of Alexandria or whatever. And so it was like, the more limits I created for myself, the easier it got because it was like, okay, this can't spiral too far out of control.
Yeah, so one thing I really enjoyed, because you can tell I wore my Paradise Blue shirt for this. Um,
Nice. Thank you.
or Paradox. In my head, I keep calling it Paradise. I don't know why, because it's not a paradise.
No, it's not.
But I guess it's the word that what they hope that it will be when they get there. But
Yeah.
I was very taken with the hotel as kind of a character. It kind of reminded me of how in the Jane Austen books, like the weather is a character, like the setting becomes very deep. Where did the tell us about the inspiration? Because like I know about it, but the people listening might not know where you got inspired for this hotel.
Yeah. So it was funny, like I knew the hotel needed to have a look. And I feel like a lot of hotel narratives, they do like Art Deco style, and that's cool, but I wanted to do something different. And I literally just went onto Google and typed like cool hotels and just started image searching, and then came across the TWA hotel at JFK, which is like the old TWA terminal, and which was decommissioned and got renovated and reopened as a hotel a few years ago. And I live in New York, so I was like, cool. Like I just kept on emailing email addresses on the website asking if I can come tour. And finally, their events manager got back to me. It was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So I drove out to the airport and just went to the hotel, and the guy took me around. I got to take all these photos, and it was great because it really helped me sort of kind of get a visual sense in my head because the TWA hotel is mid-century modern, which is a really cool design style, which like it's sort of like a lot of what's on Mad Men is sort of like that, where it's like kind of retro, but like also feels kind of futuristic sometimes. And so that tour really, really helped. And then I literally, and I have it somewhere, and I won't take it out because I'd probably knock over 12 things, and B, you would think I was a crazy person, but I have a map that I drew. And it probably only makes sense to me and no one else, but I literally like diagrammed the entire hotel, like what I thought it would look like. I have all the individual rooms labeled.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and there were like 500 something rooms. Like I just went nuts on it. And but I really need that. Like when I was writing the warehouse, like I designed the entire warehouse facility because it's like I need that sense of space, and I need to be able to look at something and say like, okay, like so like in the Paradox, January she's in the lobby. How long is it going to take her to get to the end of the 5th floor? You know, like the far hallway. Like I just have to be able to kind of like visualize that. And it's definitely one of the more fun parts of the process.
Now, is the old TWA area, is that open to the public, or is that a thing you have to have like special permission to see?
Oh no, I mean, it's like it's a hotel, so I
Okay.
guess you could just like wander into, like they've got like a bar and like food and stuff. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what their situation is like now, but yeah, they had a parking lot. Like I just parked the car, went in, and just hung out for a little while. But yeah, it's really, I would say it's worth checking out. It's really cool because it's also like it's a piece of history, and they've got like these cool like little sort of exhibits of like old like flight uniforms and like the people who designed the hotel, like their drafting table with the schematics. And so
Is that where the
it's
office came from?
yep. Yeah. No,
Oh,
I
that's
stole a
cool.
lot of stuff from like that tour really, really helped. Like that stuff. And that's why I'm such a big fan of like of site visits and interviews and sort of like just kind of getting out because it's real world details that I really think kind of flesh it out.
Experiential research.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you wrote an article about that recently. Was that for Chuck's blog?
Yeah. For Wendig's blog. Which, you know, that's one of those things that like, so I was a reporter for years. So like research is like my jam. Like I love doing it. And it's something that like when you don't have training in, I guess like, you know, doesn't always come as naturally. And so like one of the things that I talk to people a lot about, like especially like students that I'm working with in like writing workshops, like I encourage them to like go out and to like find experts in the area that you're writing about in order to talk to them, because what'll happen then is like not only can they fill in the gaps of whatever not like knowledge you're looking for, they can always like, you know, relay personal anecdotes and things like that. And then I always tell them the most important question you can ever ask. I learned this. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I was covering a fire, and I was talking to the battalion chief, which is like whenever there's a fire, you find the battalion chief at the scene because they're the ones who are going to give you all the information that you need about like, you know, what alarm the fire was, how many people were injured, you know, how long it took to put out, how many firefighters there were, stuff like that. And he can tell that I was new, and he's like, I can tell you're new because it's raining and you're using a pen and not a pencil. And I'm like, okay. He was like, okay, so the most important question you can ever ask me or anyone else is there anything I should have thought to ask or we could have talked about that I didn't bring up? And he was like, that's going to change your game. And he was exactly right. It's like one of those things that it's like, because people love to talk about themselves, you know, hence what we're doing. And yeah, it's just really, really valuable to be able to do stuff like that. So yeah, I really love talking about like the sort of like nitty gritty like craft stuff, which I mean, and you do a fantastic job of too on Twitter. You know, it's just, you know, when you were doing like the 10 things, yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah, I learned most of what I know about getting published on Twitter, so it feels like the right thing to do to pay it back and to chat with people about it. So yeah, if anybody ever has any questions about publishing or writing that's ungoogleable questions, if you Google us and say, "How do I get published?" we'll be like, "Come on, buddy." The answer to the test is part of the test, but like it's
Yep.
a good place to learn.
Yeah.
Yes, and you actually used to be my boss over at Lit Reactor. So
And you were a very surly employee. No. You were no, you were such a good instructor. Like you were always one of like my like, you know, model instructors. And we would love to have you back if you ever come back. But yeah, I run the class program at a website called Reactor, and so we bring in authors to teach like 2, 3, 4 week classes, and it's a lot of fun. And I think it's really helpful in the sense that like, you know, you get to sort of like laser in focus on a subject, and like you don't have to spend like tens of thousands of dollars getting an MFA. You can like learn world building with Delilah Dawson, or any of the other great instructors that we have, and you can be like, okay, cool, I want to learn about characters, or I want to learn about this or that.
We knew it would have helped me so much when I was first starting out, and in that like, why do I keep getting rejected phase? Is Lit Reactor, for many of the classes, you can get like actual critique from the instructors, whether it's of your clue or your first 20 pages or like whatever. That would have been invaluable to me. So I think Lit Reactor is doing some very important work there, whether you want to write prose, nonfiction, short stories, or even comics. And you've got Alex Segura doing comics.
Yeah, Alex has been doing a regular series for us on just writing comics, and it's so great. Like, and that's one of the things that I love about running the program, is that I basically get to like audit every course. So definitely works out for me. Yeah.
Yes. Well, okay. So we could talk about craft all day, but we're going to talk about Paradox Hotel now. Okay. Yes. So one thing that I liked was, this book was very hooky and commercial. We say like it was the hook enough can get you. But in January, you didn't just go with a cardboard or a Mary Sue or a, random competent spy man. You went with a very complex character. So where did January come from?
It's funny. That's actually kind of that's where we start to get into like the really weird divine nature of the process. Because there were so many things, like the story kind of built on itself, where it was like, okay, hotel for time travelers. Okay, I see an analogy in space travel, where space travel is turning into like a tourism industry for the super rich. So what if we invented time travel? Like the same thing might happen. And like let's play with financial markets, because financial markets are literally as made up as time travel. They're all bullshit. So it's like all these things building on each other. And then just one day I just kind of had this image of this woman walking off an elevator in a boho hat. And I was like, oh yeah, her name is January. And literally, like, I was just like, I kind of had her voice down, like as soon as I kind of had that image. And it's like so weird and hard to explain. But I kind of did appreciate writing sort of, a kind of like tough, hard-boiled-ish detective character who was like a smaller woman, because I feel like those characters are always like, big goony tough guys, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, but I've seen that enough. So I kind of wanted to write like this sort of, broken down noir character who was a woman. And it's a great challenge for me as a writer, because it's always like, that's something that I was really, really nervous about going into. It's like writing a female POV, because like I did it a little bit in Warehouse, but it still feels like, okay, like, don't mess this up.
What about Ruby? Where did she come in? Well, I think of it as she, because Ruby's a female name, but where did Ruby and the googly eyes come from?
Well, so Ruby was like, I mean, first off, like there's no, you can never go wrong with like a weird quippy robot sidekick.
So if you haven't read the book yet, Ruby is a floating robot sidekick with googly eyes.
Yeah, it's like a little like drone, like it looks like a pair of binoculars that just kind of like flies around and is a pain in the ass to January. And yeah, I thought it would be cool to have a robot, because literally like my thought process with this was like, okay, cool, I'm writing a time travel book, I'm putting in robots and dinosaurs, like I'm having my fun with this. And I kind of just got this idea of, okay, cool, little robot helper assistant. And I did I gave it a so it did come bundled with like a female voice, and January decided that was sexist, that like a helper robot would be female, so she gave it a male voice, and then gave it an accent. And I was like, what's the funniest accent? And I'm like, well, obviously New Zealand. No disrespect to people from New Zealand, it's just a very funny accent.
I would say also, if you've seen like What We Do in the Shadows, you can never take it seriously again.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Because all the vampires are so incompetent.
Yep. And so yeah, then it was with the googly eyes. That was just sort of like, this is dumb. This is dumb, and it's funny to me. It's so funny to me, and I'm going to put it in, and my editor's going to ask me to take it out. And I always have like one or two things in every book that I do that with, and he did not do that, so I was a little surprised.
I love it when that happens, and you're waiting for the pushback, and it doesn't come, and you're like, oh really?
Yeah, I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm just not
going
to bring it.
Now?
I'm not going to bring any attention to it in case maybe you didn't notice.
So we've got January, we've got Ruby, and then we've got Mina. Where did Mina's character come from?
See, that was an interesting one too, because like I thought it would be interesting to write a trans character in a time travel narrative where you can kind of sort of like move around in time a little bit, and it started kind of differently and then changed. And but essentially I ended up going out with two writers who are friends of mine who are both trans, Emma Johnson and Lila Bowen, both of whom are hugely talented writers, and were both really generous in their time and sort of like, checking me and like making sure that I wasn't being a complete idiot. Um, and both like really challenged me. Like I wasn't going to them for like a pat on the head. I was like, hey, like I want to do this in a loving and careful way. And they were like, okay, cool. Like, we'll help. And um, she's just she's one of my favorite characters that I've ever written, you know. And I don't want to get too much into it because of like what she means to the narrative and sort of like what her deal is. But yeah, she was another one that just kind of like she just kind of showed up, like her in January almost like showed up in a pair.
Yeah. No, it was it's hard to talk about it too much without giving too much away, but it was very satisfying.
Well, good. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed like the diversity of this hotel where you're like, well, yeah, like it's going to be a diverse cast of people at a hotel, and the found family aspect. If you could tell us about that a little bit, because it's definitely something that was a heartstring in the book.
I'm always a big fan of those stories, and I think part of it honestly is because I was watching a lot of Pose when I conceived of the book,
A lot of
which
what?
is Pose on FX.
Oh, what's that?
It's this great show about the ballroom scene in the
Oh,
1980s in New York, where like a lot of LGBTQ people kind of like got together around like drag performances and stuff, and it was sort of like an underground thing. And it's a really beautiful show. Like Billy Porter's in it, like MJ Rodriguez. Like I think she won like an Emmy for the final season. And it's just such a gorgeous, fun, beautiful show. But it's about all these characters in the LGBTQ community in New York in the '80s who kind of like find each other and support each other. And yeah, super funny shows, super heartfelt. Like it's like they have this one like slow piano cue that every time the slow piano cue plays, or like it starts to play, I'm like, I know it's going to be a really emotional scene and I'm about to ugly cry, so at least I can like prepare myself. um
they've got you trained.
yeah, essentially. But yeah, no, it's just there's something really powerful about found family stories, because it's like, sometimes, and I'm really lucky. Like I get along with my parents really, really well. I love my family. Like I literally just like went to my mom's job because she had like a dozen books for me to sign for her friends. But the thing is, like some people, they get stuck with families that aren't always great. So sometimes you have to go looking for those people who like really love you and really support you. And I mean, I have my own found family. I have my own group of like idiot friends who are amazing and we would do anything for each other. And that's always just a really, really fun thing to explore in a story.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was I enjoyed that aspect of it. The cast of characters was really colorful but very heartfelt.
Thank you. I,
Um,
I did I did get a 1-star review on Amazon for being too political because I had a non-binary character, and and I was like, oh, you didn't even get to the trans character yet, and already you're gonna hand me that. Like, cool. I know all I need to know about you. Um,
yeah. Nope, I've had those too, and you're like, I don't think you've ever actually been outside of your hometown, buddy.
yep.
So what kind of like outside of arranging time travel, did you have any unique difficulties in writing this book?
Not really. It's but I also like I'm a lunatic outliner. Like I spent a lot of time researching and outlining. So it was like cracking the story took a little while, but my Warehouse was a really complicated book to put together. That was like a couple of different stops and starts and just trying to figure out how to actually structure the narrative and all this really, really obnoxious stuff trying to make the dumb thing work. And then Paradox was just kind of like, I think because I like focused down on like one character and one POV, and like it actually like I mean it wasn't easy, but it certainly like came together a lot quicker. And I think part of that because I was going back to my comfort zone of like, writing sort of like a more crime oriented thriller than sort of like something that was like really like big and expansive.
Mhm. So I know I've read about you wrote a lot of really good articles this week, and I read them. But you wrote one about selling your books as movies and where the movies are. Do you want to tell folks about like where your books are in the movie realm?
Yeah, sure. So the Warehouse was optioned by Howard, Imagine Entertainment. I don't know, like, I don't know exactly what's going on there. I've heard some encouraging things, but that's like an immensely slow process. My Ash McKenna books, that series got optioned for TV by Village Roadshow, which was super cool, and I got to meet with the writers who were doing that. That was like 2 months ago, and you know, we'll see how that shapes up. And then Paradox is actually really exciting because I got to read the pilot script. They hired this guy named Jacob Chase who wrote this. He wrote and directed this movie called Come Play, which was a horror movie that came out like 2 Halloweens ago. And really, really smart, talented guy. And they brought him on. He wrote the pilot. They sent it to me, and I just, God, I was blown away by it. It was so good. Like it made me jealous because there were ideas in there of the way he spun out the world building that was just like, come on. And they were like, do you have any notes? And I'm like, yes, this is very good. That is my note. Like I got nothing.
It's so awesome when people like get it.
Yeah. It was like just so many weird things that like I don't even want to, I obviously can't talk about in this setting, but I'm just, and it's one of those things. It's an option, so like who knows? Like it doesn't mean it's going to happen, and so it's a matter of just kind of like sitting around and waiting and seeing what the next steps are. But I'm feeling okay right now. Like I go into all of this stuff assuming that this stuff is not going to happen
because that's how Hollywood works for writers. It's yes until it's a no at the last minute. It's so destructive.
Yeah, and it's better to be surprised than disappointed. So I'd rather just like be surprised if something goes forward.
Okay, so now I have to ask, what tattoo did you get for this book? Because you get a tattoo for every book, right?
Can you?
Oh yeah, it does. It's a triangle.
It's from the cover.
Now, did you come up with that, or did the designers at Penguin Random House do that?
No, so we went through like so many different cover iterations. I think we saw like a dozen, and they were all like really good, but just not quite there. And then they sent over the what it turned out to be with the elevator buttons, and we were all like, that's the one. And so I took it to my tattoo artist, this woman that I go to for everything, and I was like, do something with this, and she was like, okay, and she came up with and worked out pretty well. Speaking of covers, okay, so I'm going to tell you a story that's going to make me feel dumb, but I think it's worth talking about. So the violence cover, right? So there's this. I'm going to hold it up so you can see. So I remember looking at it and being like, why is the knife casting such a weird shadow? Like, and I thought it was like this weird artistic choice that I just didn't understand. And then like, I think they put out like an animated cover or something.
And then
I was like, oh, it's a face. I had this book for like months sitting on my desk and looking at it, and every time I was like, what a weird design choice, but okay. So which and again, speaking of like, just God, that was such a good book. Like, come on. Like I loved, it's one of those, it's a thick book, it's a hefty book, and I tore through it in like 2 or 3 days. Just really, just really, really smart. And I was really intimidated. Like I really appreciate that you asked me to blurb it, but then after I finished it, I'm like, oh my God, like I really have to do a good job on this.
Like make it good, or she's gonna come back with a knife.
and not to say like I half-ass the blurbs that I do, but like some of them.
This book was okay.
But yeah, no, I was like, this is an important book, because it's not just like a really, really good thriller. It's like really talking about like, generations of like abuse and trauma, and it's a really sort of like deep, thoughtful look into that. And I was like, okay, yeah, don't screw this one up.
No, I appreciate that so much. It meant a lot to me.
Yeah, I'm really glad I got to read it early, and I was so excited when I went to when I was popping around Manhattan signing books. The first store that I went to was Shakespeare and Company, which is on like 70th and Broadway or something, and then they had it like right in the front window.
Aww.
And I got to tell you, I mean, pretty much everywhere I went, like it was very prominently displayed. So I think you're doing okay.
hope so. This is one of those covers that like we didn't get any iterations. It showed up and it was like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we got that on the warehouse. They sent me the first warehouse cover and I'm like, done, good, go with God.
That's the original kind of like teal and brown one. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah, with
throne
like the
carrying the
cardboard
box.
boxes and
Yeah.
yeah, no, that was and I like we did like a little tweak to the font, but that was it. But yeah, no, it was weird. Paradox was like kind of confounding because again, like
It's a
every
confounding book. Like it's not a
yeah,
straightforward book. So why would you have a straightforward cover process?
yeah, and like and there it was like every option was like good and like 95% of the way there, but we just couldn't it was like me, my editor, and my agent. Like we all looked at the covers and we picked like our top three favorites and we all had completely different answers. And it was like this is not a productive process at all.
Yeah, this is for those of you who aren't in the know in the publishing industry, you as a writer may or may not have any control whatsoever in your cover, depending on your kind of level and how your contract is written. So some books you may have no input and it will show up and that's what you live with. And some books you have input from the start, and some books it goes back and forth, and some books it just shows up fully formed like Athena popping out of Zeus's skull. You just never know.
Yeah. So I mean, and we're going to be getting into the Q&A in a minute. So before we do that, like, can you tell us a little bit about the violence?
Oh, sure. So the violence is the story of three generations of women who are all suffering through kind of a cycle of domestic abuse. There's the kind of grandmother figure. They were all young mothers. There's a grandmother figure in like her early 50s who is now kind of a wealthy socialite, but who started out kind of very dirt poor. Her daughter is kind of the main character of the three main characters, who lives that magazine perfect life, but is caught in domestic abuse and can't escape because, of course, he's cut off all of her avenues of resources and friendship. And then their 17-year-old daughter, who is trying to avoid all of the abuse, but already is kind of stuck with a bad boyfriend. And they're all stuck in this place until a new pandemic starts, where people randomly out of nowhere kind of go blank like a zombie, beat the nearest person to death with whatever blunt object is around, and then kind of wake up and go about their business. And there's pro
Lovely.
wrestling.
Yes. So where did you get the idea for this?
I was at Emerald City Comic Con in, I think, 2019, and I was just thinking about the domestic violence in this book is modeled on what I grew up with. And I was kind of noodling on that and thinking about, man, if only there was a way to fight back. Like, you can't fight back when you're caught in this, either because the legal system is biased against women, or because he's going to hunt you down and kill you, or because you're a child. And it was just like, what if you just couldn't be held responsible? Oh, we know if you were sick, you couldn't be held responsible. And then it kind of grew out of, what if there was this pandemic that just kind of made you kill people, and then they couldn't really sue you because you're like, oh, I was sick. Yeah. And how kind of deranged America would get. And this was before COVID. So it was just a very different time.
Okay, see, that's really interesting to me because I feel like, and I guess I should have innately known that because like I know how long the process of like taking a book and then getting it published takes. But like I guess I just kind of assumed that like, you knew about COVID while you were
Well,
writing it.
okay, so
So how did
on
that change the
spec.
process?
It's
Oh,
sold
okay.
on spec. It's sold on 20,000 words in January before COVID hit.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, so we slipped right in there.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you were telling me about this book when we
No problem.
were at like a party in like for like New York Comic Con or
Mhm.
something or
Yeah,
yeah.
we were at there was that a bar party, because I remember me and Wes were both
Yeah.
on submission to the same editor, and we both realized, like, she can only buy one of our books. Do we need to kill each other right now? Yeah, that was a fun party.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I remember you talking about it then and like being really intrigued by it. And like, I was excited obviously when like you signed for it because it was like, oh yeah, I want to read this book.
But then I had to
Um,
write it, which was the hard part.
yeah, which is
Because
always kind of
originally,
like,
like, the spec part, it had, like, 11 points of view. I wanted it to be kinda like my version of Chuck's Wanderers, where you have just the big sweeping The Stand saga, and then they were like, "Let's trim this down a bit." So it changed a lot.
I literally, I'm glad you said that because I'm like, I've got a couple of ideas for what my next book to be. And, like one of them is like, should I do multiple POVs like The Wanderers? And it's like, Chuck is ruining everything, man.
He gets to
Like,
everything first.
yeah.
He's so
Um,
good.
but yeah, it is really scary writing a book on spec, right? Because it's like you sell it and they pay you and you're like,
Yeah.
oh wait, but I
Now I have
haven't
to live
now I
up to your expectations.
yeah. So like did you like how much did that change your process when COVID hit? Because it felt like pretty seamless.
So I wrote the first draft right as COVID hit. So it was that kind of beautiful moment where like there were no cars and the family was riding down the street and everybody was clapping for the healthcare workers and we were sewing masks and like it was that very lovely time. And then by the time the first big revision hit, we were into the no, it's going to last forever and people are terrible. You had to like the selfishness and the anti-masking and all the things that you just couldn't have imagined in that first kind of March of 2020, we're going to pull together and hold hands and sing a song about Coca-Cola. So every revision was like, well, here we go. Humanity has disappointed me again.
Yeah, it's an interesting question of like, how writers handle the pandemic. It's like, because I've seen people like talking about it on Twitter, like, do I mention it? Do I not mention it? Like, my book has nothing to do with it, but I still need to refer to it. And like, I haven't really felt compelled to address it in any way, but it's just, and I was going to make like a COVID joke in Paradox because it's set in like 2072, but I'm like, you know what? We don't totally know how this thing's going to end yet. This could end up being in poor taste. So let's just not do that.
That's the most pushback I've gotten on this book in the reviews that tag me because I don't go looking for reviews or that I was too political and being like, the president botched the COVID response. You're like,
what could that possibly be based on?
Where's the argument?
Yeah, no, it's I just like as I was reading it, I really enjoyed that aspect of it where I was like, oh, like this is you're managing to refer to COVID and using it as a really interesting and smart jumping off point because it's like it's almost like taking the lessons that we learned from that and kind of like, spinning them out for what it would look like with this new like scarier pandemic where it's like some person might just randomly beat you to death. What was it in the opening scene? It was like a jar of like salad dressing or
Thousand Island at Costco.
Yeah. Which, in fairness, I feel like if anyone's going to randomly murder someone at first, it's going to be at a Costco.
Yeah, but it's a weird thing to be as a human being. We're like, what's the most ridiculous thing at Costco you could kill someone with?
Oh, well, we could turn this into a game that could last for the rest of this conversation.
I mean, like also like a bag of frozen shrimp was on there, but then you're like, that would be so like hard, and it would break open. Like it just doesn't have the
yeah, no, you're right. It's got to be because the first thing I thought was like the rotisserie chickens, but like no, like that would not work.
So I know that we've been told that at 35 minutes we need to take a little chill and turn it back over to McKenna. But can I ask real quick, just in case no one else asks, what are you working on now?
I cannot say.
Secret books.
Well, no, actually, it's not even like anything good.
Okay.
No, it's
like text me. I need to know.
No, I've got a comic book that me and Alex Segura did that we co-wrote together that it's coming out in June. We can't really announce it yet, but it's a cool thing, like a creator-owned thing that the two of us put together.
That's awesome.
I've got like a couple of ideas for what my next book could be, one of which is a sequel for Paradox, which if this hits humongously or the TV show gets picked up soon, I'll probably do. But then I've also got like kind of two ideas that I'm kicking around for what could be my next novel, and then like another novel that I co-wrote with a buddy that's like on submission. And so it's like all these weird little things that are just like not totally at fruition yet. And
we call those spider webs in our house because they kind of all go off from the center of you and you don't know which one is going to catch the fly.
Yeah. What are you working on? Oh wait, you had the Stranger Things thing come out today, right?
Yeah, I wrote an audiobook for Stranger Things.
That is so cool.
It'll be out in July.
So that'll coincide with the new season?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so much fun. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You got anything else cooking or?
Oh yeah, I mean I've got my next my Minecraft book is out next week. My second Minecraft book, Never Say Never, the second book in my Minecraft trilogy. And then I've got a middle grade horror out this August called Camp Scare that's about bullying at summer camp based on my own life. And my one horrible week at summer camp. And then I've got some more stuff down the line, but that's happening. That's the rest of this year. Oh, and I'm in a Legend of Korra anthology that'll be out soon too, and a Alien versus Predator anthology.
Yeah, I saw that. That looked so cool. Oh my god, I would I was thinking about trying to find out who has like the Predator IP. I think it's
Titan. That would be Titan, and like
yeah,
they should know that you want to write for them because they're very cool.
I've got a Predator idea. and I would just love to write like a ridiculously over the top violent Predator thing, because I haven't really done IP stuff. Like I did the Star Wars story for from a certain point of view. I did I did a novella with James Patterson, but like I would love to do I would love to play with some IP stuff, because it seems like and you've done it like a fair bit, and you did like the Phasma book, so it seems like such a fun thing where you basically get invited into like this cool playground, and it's like, hey, here are these really cool toys, like play with them for a little while, don't break them, but have some fun with them and see what you can come up with, and then you can be on your way. And that seems like not such a bad idea.
Oh, it's super fun, and the fact that you are an adept outliner is very beneficial, because you got to be able to outline to write IP.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that was like with the Patterson thing that I wrote. It was a lot of outlining, and then a lot of like writing, and then being like, this doesn't work, and then me crying and being like, oh no, but I cashed the first check. But it worked out.
And you know how IP works.
Yep.
Okay, so I think they're gonna get mad at us if we don't stop. So McKenna, do you want to come?
No one's gonna get mad at you. We're just sitting here listening, but yeah, we do have some questions. So
Cool.
okay, so the first one is for Rob. Oh, as I mentioned earlier, I was gonna have you talk about the violence, but you already have. So Rob already took my question from me. So let's get to audience questions. So Rob, speaking of Sleep No More, have you ever written anything for the stage, and does that interest you?
I have. Well, so me and a friend of mine, we were trying to write a play at one point. We were trying to write a modern version of Waiting for Godot, but it was two hipsters waiting for the G train, and it was like, but we both wanted to like really push the bounds of it, and so like it just turned into a complete like lunatic mess. But I would love to write for the stage. It would be so cool. I would love to write a play, and I just, it's one of those things that it's like, because I would love to write everything. I want to write a script. I want to write, I've gotten to write a comic, and that'll come out eventually. And it seems like because I'm always excited about like the different strengths and limitations of a format. So yeah, I've got kind of like a loose idea that I've got kicking around in my head. It's just a matter of like finding the time to sit down and do it.
All right. So someone else said that they see the Paradox Hotel is dedicated to Tom Spanbauer. Are you a former student of his?
Yes. I was very lucky in that I got to spend a weekend doing Tom's class. Tom teaches a form of writing called dangerous writing that is it's sort of like rooted in like minimalism and like what Gordon Lish taught. And among Tom's students are like, Chuck Palahniuk, who wrote Fight Club, and like Monica Drake, and all these, and Susie Vitello, and all these great writers. And yeah, it was like a long weekend at his house in Portland, in his basement, with like a really great group of people. And it was one of the last in-person classes that he did. And you'd never know. You could read the books side to side, and you would never know Paradox is sort of influenced by his book Now Is the Hour. And again, like I think the parallel is only there in my head, but it's still kind of there. And but I love Tom. He's my favorite writer. So I just kind of felt compelled to give this one to him.
Awesome. How has your life changed since becoming a full-time writer? And I think we can throw this to Delilah also.
I take a lot more naps, which is pretty great. I also spend a lot of time in a state of perpetual anxiety, because when you're not getting a steady paycheck, when like you don't get checks for a couple of months, you kind of feel like, uh-oh, I'm never going to get paid again. But I get to really spend focused time with my daughter, which is super cool, because I get to like really schedule things around her schedule. So it's like when I'm with her, and it's nice to like kind of have that flexibility, So what about you, Delilah?
So I didn't know that I wanted to be a writer. I thought I was a visual artist, and then when my youngest child was 9 months old, he stopped sleeping, and my brain broke. And my husband was like, "You need a hobby. You should write a book." And my brain was so broken. I was like, "Yeah, okay, cool. I can do that. Whatever." So everything that I knew before changed, and I became a writer. So I was a stay-at-home mom while I was writing, and it's been that way ever since. So I haven't had like a 9-to-5 type jobs since my kids were born. So it's very different, but it's been very kind of natural. But it's like you said, it's great to be home like for your kids. Like my parents, I was a latchkey kid, so it's really cool to have time with them. And when they're like, "Oh, come do this with me," I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I can come do that." So it's very nice.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about not working a 9 to 5 now. It's because kind of like sometimes like I'll my daughter wants to like do something on like a day that she doesn't have school, and I'm like, yeah, cool, let's just go do it. And then we go like Dave and Buster's, and there's like no one there, and I'm like, this is the best.
And then, like, even if you have work to do, you're like, oh, I can just stay up until like 2, whatever. I can take a nap tomorrow. Who, like, it's time is fluid.
That's been bad for me because I have this bad now of like I fall asleep at like 2 in the morning. I have to wake up to take her to school at 7, and then I'm like going to the gym, and I'm like, that was dumb.
So are there any are there any ties between this book, Paradox Hotel, and your backlist titles?
I don't think so. I feel like there's something in the back of my brain, like I might have made some kind of reference somewhere to like older books, and now like it's just completely eluding me. So it probably wasn't even a good one if I made it. But yeah, no, like I wrote a 5-book series, and then I wrote Warehouse, and then I wrote this, and I've really fallen in love with this idea of like not writing sequels, not like doing series stuff. It's like I just want to build a big sandbox and then just explode it and then like walk away and not have to deal with it ever again. And the only reason I kind of started thinking about the possibility of a Paradox sequel is because like, there's the possibility of the TV show. They were like, it'd be kind of helpful to have an idea for a second season, like in our back pocket if we need it. And I was even like kind of resistant to it for a while. And then an idea popped in my head. I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. And this would be such a fun way to like kind of expand on the first one. So if this happens, this is what I'm doing. But I'd also be perfectly happy if, Paradox was it, and then I just moved on to the next thing.
Awesome. So this ties into that. I'm guessing the answer, but can you see writing another series? This comments from Marjorie. She says she enjoyed the Ash McKenna books so much.
I mean, I would also never say no. Like it's fun blowing up the sandbox, but I certainly enjoy following a character. I just have to have a good reason to do it, because it's like if you really so this is the problem that I was looking at with Paradox is it's like it's the Doctor Who problem. It's like it's a time travel book. Obviously by the end game is going to have something to do with like the time stream is in danger and the potential destruction of reality. And it's like how many times can you do that and keep it interesting? If like every season is like, oh no, time might get destroyed again, you just kind of run out of runway on it for a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's like the characters have to be there. And as long as the characters are there, I can keep going. But I don't know, like what do you think, Delilah? Like for a book like The Violence, like that feels like it's got a very definitive ending, like is that something you'd ever revisit or no?
I mean, it's one of those things where, if it hit Outlander big, there are so many stories that could be told in that world. There's plenty of characters that one could follow, but, it'd have to hit really big and someone would have to, like, really want it.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing. It's like we don't really get to write series and sequels unless the first book does really well. So,
for both of you, what's your favorite part of writing or publishing a book? And let's start with Delilah on this one.
I mean, my favorite part is when I get that idea and everything feels like this whole world of hope and anything could happen. Because when you get the book idea that's worth writing, your brain says, this is it. This is the one. This is going to happen. It's going to be the movie and the kids going to be carrying the Trapper Keepers. It's going to be on T-shirts. Like, this is the big idea. This is the perfect idea. Because, of course, it isn't imperfect until you write it. But I love that kind of opening salvo where you get the idea and you start kind of like feeling around it and finding the shape of the story and meeting the characters. Like it's so full of hope. I really like that part.
How about you, Rob?
I love that feeling of like actually getting the finished books, when they finally come in, and like there's always this overwhelming feeling of like, this is just a bunch of shit that I made up in my head. Like, how did we get here? Like so many people had to say yes to this. Like, this is insane. And there's something that is both really absurd and really deeply beautiful and satisfying about like holding the finished product and being like, okay, yeah, this is a thing now. Like this dumb little German, I walked through Sleep No More and thought of the words time travel hotel, and now I'm holding a book.
Yeah. So this question's a little long, bear with me. So many novels get optioned these days before the book is even published. Does that thought ever factor into your writing? Like how a scene may play out in a different media? How about you, Rob?
I will say, and I guess like after I did Warehouse, like I started kind of thinking a little bit more visually in terms of like set pieces, but there was definitely a scene that I added to Paradox after it had been optioned because it got optioned. Like we sold it on spec, and we were like, my film agent was like, okay, we're not going to take this out until it's done. It's a weird concept and it's a little too confusing, so I'd rather try to sell the whole book than just the idea. And the publisher's marketplace announcement went out, which is where like publishing deals get announced, and she started getting like tons of phone calls about it. And she's like, all right, I guess we're going out with it now. And we ended up coming down to like 4 production companies, and yeah, I think we sold the option on it like well before I had finished the book. Like I only had the first 60 pages and like an 18-page outline for the rest. And so when I was like, oh, this is going to be a TV show now, I added a scene that I was like, this would be really cool to see. Like, I don't even know if it really works for the story just yet. I kind of have to figure that out, but it would be so much fun. So yeah, definitely have done that a little bit.
How about you, Delilah?
What was the question? It kind of broke up for me a little bit.
Basically, the question is, so do you ever write a scene for different media, like how it would play out on TV or in a movie?
I think that I write pretty cinematically. Like that's kind of how my brain works. But I did write my first screenplay recently, which was a really interesting experience. In the same way that learning to write a comic is a different experience. So I think once you've got several of these, different schemas under your hat, you start to think more visually in that way too, and what the camera would focus on and how the scene would play out. So I definitely think about it, but I see it in my head, and I have all of those kind of senses entwined with the sounds and the smell. So like it's definitely there. But I think that, maybe it's more of a learned and experiential thing, where in my first couple of books, I wasn't quite sure what to put in and what to leave out. And now I feel like I hone in on it a lot faster because I see it like a movie in my head.
Gotcha. So we've got 2 more questions. I love this question. Delilah and Rob, what are your favorite books that never get old for you? This person has already read both of your books. He read them early, but
Okay.
what are the question is, what are your favorite books that never get old for you? And if one of you has an answer immediately, you can jump right in.
Watership Down.
Ooh, good choice.
Absolutely timeless.
In the City of Shy Hunters by Tom Spanbauer. Just to bring it back to him again. That's the only book that I've ever finished and started reading again.
Nice. And then back to another reading question. What are you reading right now? Have there been any recent favorites? Rob, we can start with you since she jumped in with Watership Down so quickly.
So I just read All Her Little Secrets by Wanda Morris, and I loved it. Have you read that one, McKenna?
I haven't, but I've heard raves.
Oh yeah, that is such a good book. It's this great legal thriller. It's Wanda's debut. I absolutely loved it. I tore through it. It's so good. And then like right now, I'm sort of like, I've got so many things going on. Like I just keep on looking at my pile of books, and I'm like, I wish I could spend time with you guys, but I can't. I'm sorry. I do really want to read Child Zero by Chris Holm. I think that's going to be the next book that I pick up. I love Chris. I actually credit him for taking the swing on the Warehouse, because I remember having a conversation with him at a BoucherCon in like Toronto like years ago, and we were talking and he was talking about like dreaming bigger and trying to take that next step, and I'm like, yeah, maybe I should do that. So I went and did Warehouse. And Child Zero looks like a really, really cool like speculative thriller about like antibiotic resistance, and he's got like a background in that kind of field of science. So yeah, I'm excited to dig into that one.
Awesome. Delilah?
You guys are frozen for me.
Uh-oh.
You sound like a robot.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, there we go.
So the question is,
what am I reading?
What are you reading? Are there any recent favorites?
Y'all are frozen, but I think I'm supposed to talk about what I'm reading. So I will tell you, I am reading Wretched Water Park by Kirsten White, who's one of my favorite writers. She did, The Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein and
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Well, we almost made it the full hour.
Almost.
Almost made it. Let's give her about 20 seconds to cycle back in.
Yeah.
But that's nope, she's gone. You know what? That was our last question. I'm gonna call it because oh no. Here she is. Here she is.
Cool.
Welcome back. Hello.
Uh-oh.
Again. What did I miss? Did I miss anything exciting?
Nope, nothing at all.
Okay.
What was your recommended book?
Oh, my recommended book. Oh gosh. I'm like, it feels like all of a sudden
What you're reading now?
I'm reading, like, I'm going through my blurb pile. So I'm reading Wretched Water Park by Kirsten White, which looks super duper fun. Because I've kind of been in the middle grade horror world now for a while. So that's what I get to read. I'm going on a trip this weekend and I can't wait to get on the plane to read it.
Nice.
Awesome. There's nothing like packing for vacation and choosing which books you're going to take and overpacking or, loading up your iPad or whatever with too many and failing them at the end of the trip. But still, there's that
That's
hope.
what we do in line at Disney is I just read books on my Kindle the whole time.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Thank you both so much. As I mentioned to those of you watching, if you want more information about the authors or their books, or if you're inclined to order, we do have signed book plates for both on the way to the store. So we can get those shipped out to you soon. Congrats to you both on your recent releases. Rob, congrats on Paradox Hotel. I'm so glad that we got to host your first event, and all best as always. And Delilah, thank you for moderating and just being here this evening, and all of your books as well. So I'm going to sign us all off. Thanks to everyone for watching. Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much. Bye.